Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour, US Secretary of State hopes Hamas will accept Israel's extraordinarily generous Gaza truce and hostage release offer. Biden asks leaders from Qatar and Egypt to exert all efforts to secure the release of hostages in separate phone calls. Hamas to return with a written response.
They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly.
3 law enforcement officers fatally shot at and 5 others wounded while serving a warrant in Charlotte in North Carolina. At least one suspected attacker found dead after a 3-hour standoff. Authorities say 2 shooters involved in the attack. Precedent commits to coal phase-out by 2035, with shutting down their coal-fired power plants in the first half of 2030s. Ministers will issue a final communique with the details on Tuesday. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has urged Hamas to accept a ceasefire proposal on his visit to the Middle East. The proposal includes a 40-day truce in return for the release of hostages and the prospect of displaced families being allowed back to northern Gaza. Blinken travelled to Saudi Arabia to meet with US allies before heading to Jordan and Israel. Nick Harper reports from Washington on this.
Topping the agenda for Antony Blinken has been trying to secure a ceasefire deal and trying to secure the release of the remaining hostages held by Hamas. The Secretary of State met with multiple officials in Saudi's capital Riyadh on Monday, including with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and he met foreign ministers from 5 other Arab countries. Blinken described the updated ceasefire proposal as extraordinarily generous and urged Hamas to accept the deal.
Hamas has before it a proposal that is extraordinarily generous on the part of Israel. And in this moment, the only thing standing between the people of Gaza and a ceasefire is Hamas. They have to decide, and they have to decide quickly. So we're looking to that, and I'm hopeful that they will make the right decision.
Israel has scaled back the number of hostages it's asking Hamas to free in the first phase of this potential truce. Reports suggest it's reducing its demand from 40 hostages to 33 and requesting that women, older people and those who are sick are prioritised. Blinken also discussed increasing the delivery of humanitarian assistance to Palestinians in Gaza, and he warned Israel not to go ahead with its planned ground offensive on Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. Washington worries that Israel still intends to press ahead with an assault in an area where hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilians, most of them displaced because of fighting in other parts of Gaza, are currently sheltering. Blinken continues his diplomatic tour, visiting Jordan and Israel on Tuesday. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has urged leaders from Qatar and Egypt to exert all efforts to secure the release of hostages held by Hamas. Biden held a separate phone call with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. He also discussed the dangers of a military escalation in Rafah. Besides, the 2 presidents also stressed on the necessity of working to prevent expansion of the conflict and reaffirmed the importance of the 2-state solution as the means to achieve security, peace and stability in the region. The US military has started building a large floating pier off Gaza's coast to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid. Ships will deliver aid from Cyprus to the pier, where it will be loaded onto trucks to transfer across Gaza. The pier will be attached to the shore by a temporary causeway, which the trucks will use. US officials say the pier will be operational by early May. Once operational, up to 150 trucks will be delivered a day with 2 million meals, enough to feed almost all of the territory's 2.3 million population. Updates on Russia-Ukraine crisis now. Ukrainian Black Sea port of Odessa was struck by a Russian missile on Monday, leaving 4 dead and 28 injured. Ukrainian Navy spokesperson said that the strike was conducted by an Iskander-M ballistic missile with a cluster warhead. The road mobile short-range ballistic missile with a range of up to 500 kilometers are hard to intercept. Odessa has been a frequent target of Russian missile and drone attacks, particularly port infrastructure. Frontline worsens for Ukraine as it awaits delivery of Western weapons, especially from the US. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said this as he met NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg in Kyiv. Zelensky said that some of the aid had started to arrive, but added that it needed to be delivered faster. His comments came after the US agreed a $61 billion package of mostly military aid for Ukraine. While on his part, Stoltenberg expressed optimism that when the arms were delivered, it would help turn the tide. Shifting focus to a recent firing incident in the US now. 3 law enforcement officers were killed and another 4 were wounded in Charlotte, North Carolina. The incident occurred when the officers who were killed were attempting to serve a warrant for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. They arrived at a residence where the suspect was located and he began firing on the officers. In return, firing one suspect has been killed and 2 others were taken into custody. US President Joe Biden was briefed on the incident and has spoken with North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. Haiti's Transition Council will vote for the country's next president on Tuesday as part of the efforts to bring the Caribbean country under control amid rampant gang violence. The Transition Council took power in a ceremony on Thursday, formalizing the resignation of former Prime Minister Ariel Henry. The transitional government's mandate runs until February 2026, by when there will be elections that are to be slated and cannot be renewed. The council's installation is seen as a key step towards the deployment of a multinational security mission Henry requested in 2022 and the United Nations approved more than 6 months ago. Mexico held its second presidential debate on Sunday night, April 28th. With just a little more than a month from the June election, the focus was on climate change. Mexico's main opposition presidential candidate, Xochitl Gálvez, called her rival frontrunner Claudia Sheinbaum the candidate of lies during a pre-election debate. The attack by Gálvez comes as the latest opinion polls show that she is struggling to gain momentum with 5 weeks to go before the June 2nd election. Sheinbaum, on her part, vowed to improve water recycling in Mexico, which has been facing drought and widespread water shortages. She frequently made reference to the achievements of the current government of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Panama's presidential hopefuls made a last dash of votes on Sunday as campaigning closed ahead for the vote on 5th of May. In Panama City, frontrunner Jose Raul Molino rallied supporters. He replaced former President Ricardo Martinelli after he was banned from running due to a prison conviction last year on money laundering charges. In La Correra, Romulo Rao, who is second placed in the polls, called on voters to turn out and get him past the finish line. Also in Panama City, Martin Torrijos campaigned on an anti-corruption ticket. The former president has been placed third in most opinion polls. With 8 candidates set to appear on the ballot, pundits are predicting a tight race. Georgia faces more protests this week as lawmakers resume debate on a foreign agents law which was introduced to the parliament earlier this month. Thousands of people protested against the bill for days when it passed its first hurdle in parliament in mid-April. Since then, students have been protesting on a nightly basis, facing off against riot police. The EU has repeatedly said that the bill is a threat. Britain and the United States have also opposed the bill, while Hungary and Russia have defended it. The bill would force organizations receiving more than 20% of their funding from abroad to register as foreign agents. A parliamentary committee approved the bill's second reading on Monday in a tense hearing from which all opposition members were expelled. The Parliament is expected to approve the second of the 3 readings on Tuesday amidst the opposition protests. The Philippines and the US troops are participating in amphibious assault drills as part of their joint annual military exercises that will run till 2 weeks. The drills run until May 10th amid high tensions between Beijing and Manila, who both have claims to maritime security, in fact maritime territory in the South China Sea. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong on this.
The Balikatan or shoulder-to-shoulder military exercises take place every year, and they involve some 16,000 mostly American and Filipino troops. But for the first time, the Philippine Coast Guard will take part, as well as the French Navy, and they will take place some 12 nautical miles outside of the Philippines' territorial waters. They are also simulating retaking enemy-occupied islands facing Taiwan and the South China Sea. And this is significant because we have seen increased clashes between the Philippine Coast Guard and Chinese vessels when the Philippines has gone on these resupply missions. Now, the U.S. Secretary of State recently visited China last week, and he said that freedom of navigation in the South China Sea was incredibly vital. This is an incredibly strategic area of the region. It sees trillions of trade pass through every year. The response from China has been that the Philippines bringing in other countries to flex its muscles in the South China Sea will only undermine regional stability. Laura Westbrook in Hong Kong, reporting for DD India.
The group of 7 energy ministers on Monday pledged to close their coal plants in the first half of the 2030s, potentially setting a global example for fighting climate crisis. The G7 energy and ecological transition ministers have agreed to exit from coal by 2035. On Tuesday, the ministers will issue a final communique detailing the G7 commitments to carbonize their economies. The ministers were also pondering potential restrictions to Russian imports of liquefied natural gas to Europe, which the European Commission is due to propose in the short term. The agreement on coal marks a significant step in the direction indicated last year by COP28 United Nations Climate Summit in December to transition away from coal, oil and gas. Let's get you the latest on the incident in North Carolina. 1 more law enforcement officer succumbed to his injuries, taking the death toll to 4 and 3 wounded. The incident occurred when the officers who were killed were attempting to serve a warrant for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. They arrived at the residence where the suspect was located, and he began firing on the officers. In return firing, 1 suspect has been killed and 2 others taken into custody. You're watching DD India News Hour. Up next, we're heading for a short break, but after the break, tragic incident in Peru, 25 killed and 13 injured in a bus accident. Spewing ash and lava, Indonesia's Ruang volcano off the island of Sulawesi erupts again. Flood wreaks havoc in Kenya. Over 50 people swept away. Toll may rise.
Hype versus facts. In-depth news and analysis with experts who will help you decide why this election matters. DD India is the main election headquarters with numbers most accurate.
That they would seek better communications and management around skirmishes in the vast South China Sea, but tensions have increased recently, especially after Philippines forged stronger diplomatic and military ties with the US. From Tuesday, border officials in the United Kingdom will be carrying out physical checks on certain food and plants coming from the European Union. 3 years after the country left the European Union, business groups warn the checks will push up costs and would lead to some items disappearing from British supermarkets. Julia Chapman reports from London on this.
For decades, fresh food coming to the UK from the European Union could be imported at minimal hassle. As part of the bloc, the UK had the same sanitary standards as other members. But ever since it left the EU, a change has been looming.
My Lords, the controls set out in our new Border Target Operating Model, BTOM, represent a comprehensive assessment of the biosecurity and public health risks presented by imports, together with the risk of relevant pests and diseases. They allow us to assess our confidence in the exporting country's production standards and health controls. The BTOM aims to strike the right balance between allowing trade to flow and to protecting our domestic producers from threats such as African swine fever.
From now on, meat, dairy, fruit, vegetables and plants coming from the EU will face possible inspection. Anything that poses a medium risk to biosecurity will be checked visually and with temperature readings. British businesses importing from the EU will have to pay $180 a consignment. It's a significant cost as the UK imports 45% of its food. The government says in practice fewer than 1 in 100 shipments will be physically inspected, and it defends the cost to businesses, arguing that an outbreak of disease would be far more expensive. But industry groups say the changes will bring unintended consequences. There are warnings that the new rules could lead to shortages. Some wholesalers are turning away from the UK market because of the added bureaucracy and cost. And a rainy spring has led farmers to expect poor harvests this year, making the country even more reliant on imports.
Our concern is that this will disproportionately impact smaller operators, and we could see them withdraw from the market. That could subsequently reduce the choice that we have on shelves, and inevitably these additional costs have to be picked up somewhere in the supply chain. Many of our members are already operating under very tight margins.
The higher import prices will ultimately be passed on to the consumer. After the rate of inflation had been falling, the UK could see costs rise once again. Julia Chapman in London, reporting for DD India.
Argentina's oil, seed and maritime worker unions kicked off a strike on Monday to protest a labor reform bill backed by radical libertarian President Javier Milei. Argentina is one of the world's main exporters of processed soybeans, and revenue from commodity exports are a major source of foreign currency needed to pay down debt and finance imports for the cash-strapped government amid a prolonged economic slide. The strike started just after lawmakers in Argentina's lower house of Congress began debate on 2 sweeping economic reform bills proposed by Milei that call for privatization and tighter fiscal policy, as well as taxes on higher salaries and a labor reform. Migrants on the US-Mexico border were picked up by the US Border Patrol after crossing the border from Mexico into the United States on Monday to transport them to San Diego for processing. For months now, makeshift camps have seen migrants pass by in the eastern San Diego desert, where they wait to be processed by the border officials. Meanwhile, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said on Monday that he had spoken with US President Joe Biden on keeping the country's shared border open to legal immigration. The two spoke over the phone on Sunday afternoon, Obrador said in a regular press conference.
The economy is doing very well. And yesterday we talked about that and about keeping the border open so that those doing their legal paperwork can go to the United States but not allowing irregular migration. We communicate regularly. To give you an idea of the 12,000 migrants per day on the northern border, since January we have been at the half that number.
Indonesia's Ruang volcano off the island of Sulawesi erupted again on Tuesday, spewing ash and lava. Earlier this month, an eruption had led to hundreds of evacuations and an airport closure. The country's Center for Volcanology and Geological Hazard Mitigation raised the alert level to the highest following the morning eruption, urging residents not to get near the volcano. The island of Ruang in the province of North Sulawesi is home to more than 800 residents. Transport authorities temporarily closed Manado's airport after the eruption earlier this month, while falling rocks and ash damaged homes and forced a nearby hospital to evacuate. Indonesia straddles the so-called Pacific Ring of Fire, an area of high seismic activity where multiple tectonic plates meet. Flood wreaks havoc in Kenya as about 50 people have died in a deluge following heavy rains and flooding. People in villages near Mai Mahiu, about 37 miles from the capital Nairobi, were swept away as they slept. Rescue efforts are continuing to pull people out of the mud, with fears that the death toll could rise. More than 100 people have been killed in floods that have devastated parts of Kenya in the last 1 month. More than 185,000 people have been displaced. The world is experiencing intense weather conditions lately. Heat waves, floods and hailstorms have created havoc globally. Here's a report on how the world is coping with adverse weather conditions. Take a look.
From heat waves to devastating floods, the world is in the grip of extreme weather conditions. In India, strong heat waves are wreaking havoc in several regions, prompting warnings from the weather department to brace for a hot and humid summer.
Means unbearable, simply unbearable. This heat we have not witnessed this last 50 years or something. This is tremendous, scorching heat and unbearable. What else I could say?
Bangladesh is also feeling the heat, with record-breaking temperatures leading to the closure of primary schools and educational institutions in many districts, including the capital Dhaka.
I have never experienced such heat in my life. Yes, summer should be hot, but there would have been gusts of winds and rain. But it's not happening this time. People are suffering a lot.
Philippines has also shut schools and warned of overloading on its power grid, as authorities across Southeast Asia have issued a series of health alerts arising from a deadly heat wave in the nation.
Here in the Philippines, it is extremely hot now. The heat burns my skin. It's not like the usual summer heat that is tolerable. Now I can barely stay long out in the heat.
Extreme weather fluctuations are not limited to just a few countries. Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan and Singapore are also grappling with scorching temperatures, prompting urgent warnings from weather departments. Meanwhile, in Kenya's Mai Mahiu region, at least 42 people have lost their lives in floods caused by a burst dam, with authorities fearing casualties may further rise.
I have lost my 5 relatives, my mother, my cousin, my 2 nephews and a neighbor who came to seek refuge here.
Across the border in China, nature's fury is on a full display, with a heavy hailstorm hitting Fuzhou, snow covering parts of Hebei province and a deadly tornado tearing through Guangzhou. As Southeast Asia navigates through the tumultuous seas of climate change, the world's attention turns to Turin, Italy, where a 2-day gathering of G7 ministers is underway, focused on addressing the urgent issues of climate, energy and the environment, signaling hope for collective action in the face of adversity.
In a tragic incident, a bus crashed in the Andean mountains of northern Peru, killing 25 people and injuring more than 13. The bus was heading to the town of Sorocuco on Sunday evening when it overturned and crashed down a slope into a river. 3 days of mourning has been announced. Accidents are relatively common along Peru's precarious roads, with around 24 people dying in a crash in September and at least 24 dying when a bus plunged off a cliff in January last year. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said on Monday that he had decided to stay in office after days of publicly weighing his future. Sanchez made his announcement in a televised address, bringing an abrupt close to a 5-day drama. Sanchez had announced last Wednesday that he might quit in response to a corruption investigation into his wife, which he said was baseless and orchestrated by his right-wing political opponents. In his subsequent address, he said that he had informed the monarch of his decision to stay after having been encouraged by widespread expressions of support over the weekend. In the third Nepal Investment Summit, the government of Nepal made a strong case for investments in the hilly nation for its IT sector and green energy. The second day of the summit concluded with investments worth $9.13 billion, in fact 9.13 billion rupees for 4 different projects. The Department of Industry inaugurated the system of foreign investment approval. Foreign investors can apply to establish a new company with 100% share ownership or joint venture or investment capital in an already operating company through an automatic route. The route is expected to save investors time and money in making investments in Nepal. Minister for Communications and Information Technology, Rekha Sharma, said that the government was determined to make Nepal an international hub of IT and appealed to the investors to partner in Nepal's digital transformation and prosperity through the IT sector. A quick look at other stories from across the world making it to the headlines this morning. 6 months after Hurricane Otis unleashed its fury on Acapulco in the early hours of October 25th, residents are still rebuilding their lives and livelihoods. Despite the efforts, the pace of reconstruction has been slow, leaving many residents displaced and without job opportunities. According to locals, it will take 3 to 4 years to rebuild Acapulco fully. The ongoing 2024 Beijing International Automotive Exhibition is seeing a significant integration of AI-driven large models. New energy vehicles, that is NEVs, unsurprisingly dominated the auto show with 278 NEVs going on display. With the support of the AI digital chassis, the vehicle achieved faster control response with a reaction speed of about 25 times of human reaction speed that helps to avoid danger and ensure safety. A migrant from Thailand to the US, Charlie Seifern, won $1.3 billion from the Powerball jackpot in Oregon on Monday. Seifern is battling cancer since 2016. The prize, the 8th largest in US history, will be split with Charlie's wife Dwapun and his friend Liza. The 6th edition of the annual Briggs and Water Light Festival was held in Italy's Bresciano on Sunday. This year, the theme focused on melting glaciers to raise awareness on the effects of climate change. It was lit up by 36 light installations. You're watching DD India News. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, as the nation readies for the third phase polling on 7th of May, political leaders sweat it out with all of their might to woo the voters. In line with election coverage at DD India, we get your special report on the political dynamics in Guwahati. A unique initiative towards manufacturing products from pine needles and reducing plastic use.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. A quick relook at the top stories once again. US Secretary of State hopes Hamas will accept Israel's extraordinary generous Gaza truce and hostage release offer. Biden asks leader from Qatar and Egypt to extend all efforts to secure the release of the hostages in separate phone calls. Hamas to return with a written response. Three law enforcement officers fatally shot at and 5 others wounded while serving a warrant in Charlotte in North Carolina. At least one suspected attacker found dead after a 3-hour standoff. Authorities say 2 shooters involved in the attack. G7 countries set global climate precedent, commits to coal phase out by 2035, with shutting down their coal-fired power plants in the first half of the 2030s. Ministers will issue a final communique with details on Tuesday. All right, let's turn focus towards largest democratic election that will be held in India. Ahead of the third phase of the Indian general elections, campaigning continues to gain steam on Tuesday. 93 seats are going to polls on May 7th in this phase. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing poll rallies in Maharashtra and Telangana. 11 constituencies in Maharashtra will vote in this phase, while Telangana will go to polls in the fourth phase. Union Home Minister Amit Shah will be addressing a public meeting in West Bengal. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh will be addressing a public meeting in Madhya Pradesh's Khandwa and Birwani. While opposition Congress leader Rahul Gandhi is scheduled to address a public meeting in MP's Bhind, 8 seats in the state are going to polls in this phase. All right, for more updates on the general elections, we are joined in by DD India correspondents Gautam Roy from Murshidabad, West Bengal, and Meghna Dev joins us from Ahmedabad, Gujarat. Gautam, good morning. First to you. When we talk of the second phase of polling, that more than 75% of voter turnout was recorded, and this being the third phase of polling on May 7th, how do we expect the day to be? In fact, what are you picking up from the ground? What are the expectations of the voters? And also, very quickly, let us understand more from you on how crucial are these constituencies that will be going to polls in this phase, politically.
Good morning to you too, Preeti. This, of course, is Murshidabad. I'm in the district headquarters of Murshidabad, Berhampur. It's a fairly large constituency, and if you talk about the 7th of May, 4 constituencies, that's Uttar and Dakshin Malda, Murshidabad where I am, and Jangipur are going to polls on the 7th of May, which is the only day in the entire polling schedule which falls in the middle of the week. So the 7th of May will be a holiday because polling day is supposed to be a holiday, but the days around it, before or after, are not holidays. They're not on the weekend, and there's no public holiday as such on those days as well. So that's a notable difference which could indicate that there will be a good turnout on that day. This is a region that has a history of high turnouts. All the seats in the 2019 elections polled above 80%, going up to almost 84.5% for one particular seat. I think it was Murshidabad. But as far as the contest here is concerned, it's very, very keenly fought because it's a 3-way fight. There's the Trinamool Congress, which has been dominating in the state. If you look at the state assembly elections that took place in 2021, in 2019, they had the maximum seats in the entire state as well, out of 22. Then the BJP has come up really, really fast. It got 18 seats in the last elections. Among these 4 seats, it has 1. And there's Congress in the play as well. This is a bastion traditionally for the Congress. Top Congress leaders in the past, neither of them are alive. Former President Pranab Mukherjee from Jangipur and ABA Ghani Khan Chaudhary from Dakshin Malda. used to contest from here. He was a railway minister and a tall minority figure. All these seats are dominated by minorities. In some, the percentage is over 60% in terms of voters. So it will be very, very critical to see how these voters decide their preference come the 7th of May. The result, of course, will only be revealed in June. But as far as the campaigning goes, Mamata Banerjee has been coming to this region, the TMC president and chief minister of West Bengal, on a very regular basis. We've seen the BJP campaigning here as well. Amit Shah has come in this region earlier, about almost a week ago, and he's coming to West Bengal again. And we've seen even the India Alliance. We've seen Rahul Gandhi come here in this region speaking to BD workers in Jangipur during the second leg of his Bharat Jodo Yatra. Mohammad Salim, a Politburo member of the CPM, is contesting from Murshidabad, and he's being backed by the Congress as well. So a very keenly contested contest over here, a three-way fight, and it could go anyone's way.
All right, from here I will bring in Meghna. Meghna, good morning. You're joining us from Gujarat. Now, when we talk of the Lok Sabha polls and all the 25 seats will be going to vote except Surat, let us get more understanding from you on the key seats, the key poll contest, and what could be the expected permutations and combinations this time around.
Well, Preeti, very clearly there is not a multi-party system here in Gujarat. The contest has always been between the BJP and the Congress. And this time around, when we see that the Congress is in alliance with the Aam Aadmi Party here in Gujarat, where Aam Aadmi Party is contesting on 2 seats, Bharuch and Bhavnagar, where the Aam Aadmi Party has fielded its coalition candidates, for the general elections. But we definitely see that in a few places there is a good fight, be it Banaskantha in the northern part of Gujarat, or be it in Rajkot, which is the gateway to Saurashtra. We also do see that there is a lot of buzz, and campaigning has picked up, and the kind of support that the candidates are getting on ground. We see there is also competition or a neck-to-neck fight in Bharuch, where Chaitar Wasawa from the Aam Aadmi Party is contesting against Mansukh Wasawa, who is the BJP candidate. So that's a tribal belt of Bharuch in South Gujarat, where there is a close contest. But besides that, obviously, when we know that there is hardly less than 10 days to go for the polls here in Gujarat on 25 seats out of the 26, where Surat, we saw the candidate did win unopposed, but the rest 25 seats will be going to the polls. People will be voting. Obviously, campaigning has picked up. We saw, BJP senior leader Amit Shah also campaign in Bharuch as well as in Vadodara. He held a road show just a couple of days ago. We did see Priyanka Gandhi here in Gujarat, as well as Rahul Gandhi also campaigning in the Union Territory of Daman and Diu. What we definitely see here is that the last time in 2022 during the assembly elections in Gujarat, we did see that that the BJP had fared really well, getting over 150 seats out of the total 182 assembly seats in Gujarat. But besides, having said that, last time around, when we see in 2017 assembly elections in Gujarat, we did see that the BJP had lost on a lot of seats in Gujarat. But besides that, when 2019 general elections took place, the picture was clear, BJP getting a complete clean sweep of all the seats in Gujarat. So definitely this has been the trend, past couple of times or more than that as well. But this time around, in a few seats, we do see a close contest or a neck-to-neck fight. Besides that, obviously, we see the campaigning. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will also start his campaign in Gujarat tomorrow onwards. He will be doing multiple rallies in a day. What we definitely see is being the home ground or home state for BJP senior leader Amit Shah and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This has been a very important, or we can say, many of the seats in Gujarat have been legacy seats for the BJP, and they will definitely be trying to secure that. And most of the seats here, because when we see in Gujarat, on a number of seats, there are no calculations that work. It's just
Right.
the leaders face that work, or we see the issues that work. So on ground, definitely development is an issue. People are talking about employment. People are talking about inflation. So these are the major issues here, but definitely bringing in more businesses, because Gujarat prominently is obviously a place where there are manufacturing units and there are businesses. So people are saying that they obviously need more plants here, or more manufacturing units here, more companies to come to Gujarat. So these are some of the things that people are saying on ground. Having said that, there are regions in Saurashtra which are dependent a lot on on farming and these sectors. So farmers also have a say on issues here in Gujarat.
All right. So that was our correspondent Gautam and Meghna joining us. Thank you both of you for joining in and spelling out more details on the poll preparedness and also the poll prospects of the political parties and the political leaders that will be going to polls on May 7th. Thank you for joining in. On May 7th, the third phase of polling will be held. 95 constituencies spread across 13 states and union territories will see polling. We will keep you updated. That was Gautam joining us from West Bengal and Meghna joining us from Gujarat, telling us more about how the poll contest is poised in those respective states. From here, we now turn focus to Assam. DD India's Sakal Bhatt delves into the political dynamics in Guwahati, the capital of the northeastern state of Assam, ahead of the third phase of elections to be held on May 7th. Team Poll Pulse has reached Guwahati. Welcome to the gateway to northeast of India. We are at Kamakhya Temple here in the heart of Guwahati at the top of Nilachal Hills. Kamakhya Temple, one of the most revered and oldest places of worship. Any visit to Assam or perhaps any visit to Guwahati is incomplete without paying visit to this place from where I'm reporting from. Why is it important to vote?
ভোট দিব লাগে কি নাগৰিকৰ কাৰণে নাগৰিকত্ব পাৱাৰ কাৰণে দিব লাগে ৰাইজৰ যাতে ভাল হয় চৰকাৰখন ভাল আহিলে ভাল লাগে
Guwahati is one of the fastest growing and one of the largest cities in the northeastern state of Assam. In fact, one of the important port city or port riverine city on the southernmost banks of mighty Brahmaputra River.
लोग ऐसे वोटर है जो डेवलपमेंट हो, जो आपका हम लोग का काम हो, जो इससे एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन का कुछ काम हो, स्किल डेवलपमेंट हो, वो सब मुद्दे देख के ही हम लोग वोट करेंगे.
अभी जब जो डेवलप दिखा रहा है तो हमको तो उसी को चुनोगे.
As far as the youth bulge of Northeast is concerned, or youth electorate of Northeast is concerned, they say they play a significant role.
Voting is our right. It's our right to vote and we need to vote for a change.
असम बदल गया है, असम बदल रहा है और भी अगर बदले चेंज हो और डेवलप्ड हो तो और अच्छा लगेगा.
जो लोग बहुत गांव के अंदर से आते थे आजकल उन लोगों के पास ट्रांसपोर्टेशन की सुविधा है और हेल्थ में जाए तो आप देखिए कि लोग को अच्छा चिकित्सा मिल रही है वहाँ पे.
Two issues are, I think, major issues. One is the development issue. Another one is the corruption issue. At one point of time, we have to wait around, say, 40 years for one more bridge on the Brahmaputra. Then again, 15 years for the next one. Now we are getting 3 more bridges within 5 years.
Well, it is once again a very, very intense battle royale between the ruling dispensation of the BJP and the opposition Congress party, of which Assam used to be once upon a time stronghold. This is Sakal Bhatt reporting from Brahmaputra riverfront in Guwahati in Assam with camera person Rahul Chopra for DD India. All right, from the northeast of the country, let's turn focus to the western part of the country. Gujarat is the homeland of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and the Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. It has gained the fame for the world's tallest statue, the Statue of Unity. The western state is a BJP fortress which stood the test of time not once, but over a decade. The melting pot of cultures and close proximity with the maximum city, Mumbai, makes it the fusion capital of food and trade. Can the state help make it a hat-trick of wins for the ruling dispensation, or do we see the opposition make a match as India decides in 2024?
A kaleidoscope of culture, heritage and tradition. The Western Indian state of Gujarat has a diverse history, rich heritage and a vibrant community of traders active since the era of Indus Valley civilization. After India's independence in 1947, all of Gujarat except Saurashtra and Kutch became part of Bombay state. It was on May 1st, 1960 the Bombay state split into two states and Gujarat came into being along with Maharashtra. With the longest coastline of about 1600 kilometers, having world-class ports, Gujarat is the hub of domestic as well as international trade and commerce and attracts tourists from across the globe. Hailed as the land of Mahatma Gandhi, who was born in Porbandar, the state attracts tourists for its festivals like the Ran Utsav, the Kite Festival or Uttarayan, and the annual Navratri Mahotsav or the 9-day festival around the Shahra. Famous for heritage sites like Dholavira, Lothal and the Sun Temple of Modhera, Gujarat's traditional Garba dance has been inscribed in the representative list of intangible cultural heritage of humanity by UNESCO. Along with tourism, the political dynamics in the state are also quite engaging. In the 2024 general elections, the state of Gujarat is going to polls for its 26 Lok Sabha or lower house seats in a single phase, slated for the third phase on May 7th. The state has a total number of voters, 49.4 million, out of which 25.4 million are male voters, 23.9 million are female voters, while about 1,503 belong to the third gender community. In the 2019 general elections, Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP swept the polls and won all the 26 seats on its own for the second time in a row. Gujarat is currently governed by the BJP that bagged majority seats in the state assembly elections held in 2022. Other prominent parties in the state include the Indian National Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party. As the battle lines for the 2024 general elections stand drawn, the state is expecting direct fights of BJP with Congress and AAP in different pockets of Gujarat. Election Desk, DD India.
Himalayan Pine Company organized an event in Himachal Pradesh's Dharamshala as they take initiative towards manufacturing products from pine needles and reducing plastic use. As per the founder of the company, Abhinav Talwar, making products from pine leaves will not only reduce the incidence of forest fires, but will also provide a plastic-free environment. All right, let's turn focus to business updates now. India's share in global services exports has more than doubled over the last 18 years, and rise of global capability centers, that is GCCs, has played a crucial role in the expansion. A global report was released on Monday which said that the proliferation of GCCs has given a boost to real estate, expanded services exports, added to economic growth, created jobs and led to rapid increase in revenues for the firms. GCCs are specialized offshore entities set up by companies operating across the world and support a raft of business processes. Let's get to the market action now. US stocks ended higher on Monday with sharp gains for Tesla and Apple leading the way. Investors looked forward to what the Fed would say about the interest rate outlook after its policy meeting this week. Traders expected the Fed to keep rates unchanged while striking a hawkish tone. Meanwhile, the Fed's May 1 policy review is the prime focus for markets this week. Investors are already anticipating a delay in its rate cuts after a batch of sticky U.S. inflation, and as the officials, including Chair Jerome Powell, emphasize, even those plans are dependent on data. The Fed is seen holding its benchmark interest rate steady at 5.25% to 5.5% at the April 30th, May 1st meeting. Investors now see perhaps only a single cut this year, currently anticipated by November. Also, Asian stocks inched higher on Tuesday as investors awaited a slew of economic data, corporate earnings and the US Fed Reserve's policy meeting. While the yen was slightly weaker, a day after suspected intervention rescued it from 34-year low. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan was 0.36% higher, set to clock in a nearly 1% gain for the month, its third straight month of gains. Nikkei rose 1% as Japan reopened after a holiday on Monday. China stocks were mixed in early trading with the blue chip index. All right, talking of sports now. In tennis, world number 2 Jannik Sinner overcame some hip discomfort and a less than perfect serving performance to advance past Russia's Pavel Kotov 6-2, 7-5 into the fourth round of the Madrid Open. The tournament's top seeds. In the absence of Novak Djokovic, Sinner will face another Russian, Karen Khachanov, next as he targets a third Masters 1000 title. For his part, Khachanov overcame Sinner's Italian compatriot Flavio Cobolli 7-5, 6-4. Rafael Nadal survived a second set wobble to defeat Pedro Caquin for 6-1, 6-7, 6-3 in the Madrid Open third round. Nadal held his nerve as he was tested by the 91st ranked Argentine, who won his maiden ATP title at the 2023 Swiss Open. Both players broke early in the third set, which stood at 2 each, but local favourite Nadal then broke twice more to emerge as the winner. Nadal next faces Czech Jiří Lehecka, who beat Brazilian qualifier Thiago Monteiro 6-4, 7-6 to reach the fourth round. World number 1 Iga Swiatek made light work of Spain's Sara Sorribes Tormo in the fourth round of the Madrid Open, wrapping up an emphatic 6-1, 6-0 victory in just over an hour. The result sees last year's losing finalist continue her bid for a maiden Masters 1000 title on clay, while leaving no Spanish representation left in the women's singles draw. Meanwhile, defending champion Aryna Sabalenka came back from a set down against world number 15 Danielle Collins, putting an end to the 30-year-old American's 15-match winning streak, while keeping her own hopes alive of becoming the first three-time winner in Madrid since Petra Kvitova. In an All-American fourth round-up match, Madison Keys upset number 3 seed Coco Gauff to reach the first-ever quarterfinal of the tournament. Keys fought back from 2-4 down in the third set to prevail 7-6, 4-6, 6-4 against Gauff. Real Madrid will take on Bayern Munich in their first leg of Champions League semi-final in Germany on Tuesday. Real Madrid manager Carlo Ancelotti said that his side will not make the mistake of looking past Bayern Munich despite the rivals' disappointing domestic campaign. Ancelotti and European pedigree matters, and the 6 times winners will have extra motivation to win the last trophy they can fight for. Bayern reached the Champions League semis for the first time in 4 years with a 3-2 aggregate win over Arsenal. Meanwhile, the 14 times champion Real made the last 4 after knocking out holder Manchester City on penalties. On to cricket now. In today's IPL match, Lucknow Super Giants are up against Mumbai Indians in Lucknow. Both the teams have suffered defeats in their previous matches. Lucknow finds itself in the mid-table tussle, while Mumbai is trying to move up from the bottom half. Lucknow Super Giants have played 4 games against Mumbai Indians. The Super Giants have been dominant force in the clash with 3 wins, while the Mumbai Indians have won a single match. A unique kind of cultural sports tourism season began in Vietnam's Da Nang city. The opening ceremony of the Da Nang Beach Tourism Season 2024 themed Summer Waves officially kicked off. Take a look. All right, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.